goes to right. Russell Westbrook. You love the Philadelphia Eagles. Let me get a hell yeah!
Hey, what's going on, guys? It's your boy, Dive, Mr. Crockpot on Twitter. Welcome to Party on Broad. Today, we are breaking down the quarterback position on the Philadelphia Eagles, specifically Jalen Hurts and the 2021 NFL Draft. Joining me today is my man, Shane. You know him on Twitter at @halfandhalf_TPL. What's up, Shane?
Not much. I'm excited to talk some Eagles draft. A little bit nervous. I put out a scouting report today for J.C. Horn, and it's probably the most off consensus I've been for any prospect this cycle. So I'm interested to get some feedback on that. But that's not what we're here to talk about. So
no, man, we're going the opposite side of the football today. We've got an amazing guest for you guys today. We're talking about one of the best Twitter followers and the biggest football nerds there is. My man is a writer for Touchdown Wire. He's got one of the best football breakdown YouTube channels there is. If you want to learn about the actual ins and outs of football, please give my man a subscribe there. He is Mark Schofield at Mark Schofield on Twitter. What's up, Mark?
What's going on, guys? It's quite the intro. I mean, now I'm going to have to bring my A game. I was going to kind of like coast tonight, you know? It's post-dinner. I told you guys I had breakfast for dinner. I've got some pancakes in the belly, so I was hoping to slide a little bit, but now I got to bring the A game. So, all right, let's get going.
Let's do it. All right, so you are the quarterback guru. You're the guy, man. I love the analogy you use dividing quarterbacks into bakers and the chefs. Can you explain that difference between those two? And how would you classify Jalen Hurts as a quarterback?
Yeah, it's a fascinating question. A lot of people have used sort of different, like real world, I'd say, analogies to describe different kinds of quarterbacks. I know like Daniel Jeremiah and others, they've used sort of the tractor versus the trailer, right? Like the guy that can pull the team, the guy that has to be pulled by it. I've used Baker and Chef. Led Zerline has used that as well. And the way I sort of like break it down is this. You know, anybody that's tried to make a cake, right? You've got to go step by step. You've got to follow the recipe. If it calls for 3 cups of flour, you're putting 3 cups in. You're not putting 3 or whatever in, because if you deviate at all from the recipe, it's going to get screwed up. Your cake's going to be pudding. It's going to be jello. It's not going to be good. So you have to follow it book step by step by step. But if you're like, you know, making sauce or something, making gravy or something, you can go a little heavy with the garlic. You can go a little heavy with something else. You don't have to follow the script too much. You could deviate from it. Some quarterbacks are bakers. Some quarterbacks are chefs. Some quarterbacks sort of have to go like step by step by step on a design of a play. Others are a little bit more comfortable going off script. It doesn't really screw them up. But I'll give you guys sort of a football example. Back when I played, we ran a route concept called 5-8-5, which was deep comeback routes on the outside from each outside receiver, post route in the middle of the field from your slot or your tight end. And depending on the coverage, we'd either read it weak side. Like say we get single high, cover 3, cover 1. You're reading that weak side 5 route to the check down from the running back. If you get 2 high safeties, cover 2, cover 4, you're looking that post route between them. See if you could throw that quickly. Otherwise, you're going to that side's comeback route to the check down. Okay. So say I get, you know, cover 2 on a given play. I'm looking post 5 check down, no matter what. If that backside receiver, that cornerback falls and breaks his leg, and he's like wide open and says, look, I'm just going to go deep because nobody's covering me, I'm not going to see that because I'm a Baker type of quarterback. I'm going 8 to 5 to check down. That's what I'm supposed to do in this play. Other more creative quarterbacks, your chefs, they'll see that and say, oh, well, forget the recipe. I've got a touchdown. I'm going to throw this. And, you know, I think a prime example of, you know, a chef type quarterback is Brett Favre, Patrick Mahomes. Like those are the guys that, you know, they'll throw the playbook, the progression, all that stuff out the window. If they've got a touchdown, they'll throw it. I mean, I've heard stories about some quarterbacks sort of in that realm, in that sort of Baker, chef type realm, they'll go off script. And, you know, I think that's a good way to sort of think about quarterbacks. Another way to describe the sort of Baker type of quarterbacks is that they're task-oriented quarterbacks. Eric Stoner, who used to write years ago, had a great piece about Marcus Mariota saying that he was a task-oriented quarterback. He's following the steps. If something's available to him, he's not going to deviate from that. He's going to do what he's supposed to do. Now, with regards to Hurts, I would say he's chef curious. How's that sound? He's somebody that right now I think it was very much sort of I'm going to work my reads. If it's an RPO design, I'm going to, read the defender, make the throw. That sort of Arizona concept that they love to call for, which is the 5-step post route on the inside receiver and the 2 in routes from the 2 outside guys. He'll work his reads on that, won't look backside unless he absolutely has to. But there are times where you can see him sort of want to create a bit more, get outside the pocket and create a little bit more. His athleticism lends himself to have those opportunities and create those opportunities. And so I think right now I'd say he's chef curious. He's somebody that I think has the potential to be that kind of quarterback, but he's still sort of getting his feet under him in the NFL. So he's going a bit more by the book right now in his career.
Yeah, he's shown a lot of flashes, some good, some bad. Fingers crossed he's Bobby Flay and not like Chef Boyardee. You're up, Shane.
Right.
So, Mark, you study a lot of quarterbacks. I've watched a lot of your tape on quarterbacks. What was your initial evaluation of Jalen Hurts as a prospect coming out of college? And then, small sample size in 2020, but how did that change through 4 games?
Yeah, it's interesting because, at the end of last season, 2 seasons ago, his final season in college, I wasn't exactly high on him as a prospect. But then I went down to Mobile for the Senior Bowl, and he was down there. And you could tell that the work had already begun to get himself ready for the NFL draft and to play in the National Football League, because he always had very loose mechanics. And I usually don't get caught up in mechanics. When Mahomes was coming out, for example, one of the reasons I was high on him was because the ball got where it was supposed to be, when it needed to be there. And so I started saying the phrase, mechanics don't matter until they matter. If the ball is getting there when it needs to get there, I don't care how you do it. Like if your feet aren't sent, if your shoulders aren't square, if, you're throwing it behind your back, I don't care as long as the ball gets what it needs to get there. Hurts, that was a problem with him because the ball wasn't getting where it needed to be on time, and mechanics were a bit of a problem. The dip, the loop, the looseness to the upper body, and the throw-in motion. But you could see down in Mobile that it was already tightened up. He had already been working on it, which told me 2 things. 1, he realized that it was a problem. And 2, he was working on it. He was actively trying to improve himself. And with today's CBA rules, the restrictions on practice time, like you can't wait till training camp to fix your mechanics. It's too late. Like you've got to put that work in now. Look at Josh Allen and all the work he did with Jordan Palmer and that group out on the West Coast, getting himself ready for the season. It's a huge part of playing quarterback in the NFL today. So I could see that work was already in progress for Hurts. He was in an offense that let him throw the ball a bit more downfield, and that's when the light went on for me. I'm like, this kid could be a downfield, vertical-based passer. Like I wanted him to go to Tampa Bay of all teams. I wanted him to play for Bruce Arians in that sort of system. And, obviously that's not where he ended up. But it was during that sort of Senior Bowl pre-draft process where I started to warm up to him being a better prospect than I thought. I could go back and look. I think he graded out like QB5 for me in the draft. But somebody that I was a bit higher on once the draft rolled around as opposed to when his season ended. And I still feel that way about him. I still look at what he did last year, in a strange set of circumstances, coming into the starting lineup, replacing a guy that had an MVP type season just a couple of years ago. And he handled it well. Could he have been better? Yeah, sure. But, I don't expect a ton from rookies, particularly coming into that situation. So I think what I'm looking for is the neck up now to take that next step. Faster through reads, faster through progressions, faster with his decisions, the athletic ability, the arm talent, the ability outside the pocket. He checks all of those boxes. And so I think it's just the mental side that has to get there for him. And I think, look, Nick Sirianni might be the ideal sort of new head coach to work with him. So I would tell Eagles fans, if you are, looking for Jalen Hurts, what you want to see next year, I think you should be cautiously optimistic. I don't think you need to focus on production, TDs, interceptions, all that stuff, completion percentage. Focus on the decision-making, the process in the pocket, and how quickly the ball comes out of his hands. If that gets faster, if the decisions are better, I think he's done the improvement and done the work that he needs to do to be a bona fide, NFL starting quarterback.
All right, let's go on to 2021 and Nick Sirianni's offense. There are a lot of questions regarding what we're going to see from this guy as a play caller. Let's talk about Jalen Hurts and his strengths. What offense do you think could be built around this guy? And who are some good NFL draft fits for Nick Sirianni's system?
Yeah, and, I think building off what I was just talking about a few seconds ago, I think sort of a good offense for Jalen Hurts would be something extremely similar to what we saw the Chargers do with Justin Herbert this past season. A lot of play action, a lot of spread stuff, but shot plays off of that, half field reads where, and this is something that all teams do anyway, but this is something that you primarily saw this past year with Joe Burrow, where it's empty, man coverage beater to one side, zone coverage beater to the other. You don't have to tell the difference if it's, cover 6, cover 7 mod or all those variations of coverages. If it's man, you're throwing left. If it's zone, you're throwing right, or vice versa. I want those sort of half-field reads in there that will help speed up the process. I do think that sort of more vertical passing game is a great fit for him. Of course, you want to work quick game stuff in, and there are a few offenses these days, guys, that are a pure West Coast or a pure vertical or a pure Art Perkins or whatever. Every team runs mesh, every team runs levels, every team runs Mills, every team runs Yankee. But I think the focus should be on the more downfield aspect of the field right now to let him use that arm talent, let him push the ball downfield a little bit, cater to what his strengths are as a quarterback. And I think Nick Sirianni, he's going to do that. If you see sort of his journey through the coaching ranks, like he's going to cater this offense to what he does well. In terms of sort of draft fits for that kind of offense, I think, you look at the roster right now, I think Hightower is a good fit for a vertical passing game. I thought Quez Watkins would be a good fit for a vertical passing game. Raygor has vertical tendencies, double moves and things like that, or a strength of his coming out. If you do look to the draft at the wide receiver position, this is a fantastic draft class at the wide receiver position. If you go receiver at 6, look, Devonta Smith is great. I know people are going to be concerned about the frame, the size. You're going to look at the sort of height, weight, and think that's not I don't know about that at 6 overall. But he plays bigger and stronger than, 6'1", 180. I think he plays a lot bigger and stronger than that. You watch him on film. He's not really getting out muscled too much. Maybe some bigger, more physical, longer corners might, sort of handle him that way. But he's shifty enough that he should be able to beat those guys off the jam anyway. But if you're scared by Smith, his teammate Jalen Waddle is fantastic as well. Yeah. Track background. I really like Jalen Waddle. I mean, in my rankings of the receiver position, it's Chase, it's Waddle, it's Smith. I mean, I prefer Waddle to Smith. You see the track background, you see the pace on the routes. I love his ability to work over the middle. And what I thought was interesting, guys, about that Alabama offense was when Waddle went down, well, prior to his injury, they used him on a lot of designed plays, jet sweeps, quick throws, designed plays to him. And when he went down, they sort of put, Devonta Smith into that role. And so do with that what you will. But that tells me that Alabama's like, we're going to try to get the ball to Waddle. Now with him out, we'll do that with Devonta Smith. And so, maybe if you get Steve Sarkisian and Nick Saban, an adult beverage or two, they might tell you a little bit something about that situation. But those receivers are great. But if you want to wait until day 2 and go a different direction, De'Ami Brown from North Carolina, I think he's that vertical type threat. I love his route running. I love how he works back to the football, which is so key for a young quarterback. He'll run a route. If he doesn't get the ball, he keeps working. I know Nico Collins is another sort of big-bodied X-type guy. Later in the draft, Palmer, the kid from Tennessee, would be a nice fit too. But then there's the unicorn in this draft, and that's Kyle Pitts, the tight end / receiver from Florida, who, I think you draft him as a tight end, whatever team drafts him, but you play him all over the place. You put him at X, you put him at Y ISO, you put him in the slot. I saw him running out and up against Kentucky's corner who's going to get drafted and just separate and run away from him. And the other thing about Pitts is, look, you can put him in line and keep him in and, pass block with him, run block with him. His run blocking and pass blocking got so much better from 19 to 20. I think he could do that. But to paraphrase a friend of mine, Coach Chris Vassar, who said about Von Miller, yeah, he can cover, but if you're dropping Von Miller into coverage more than 2 times a game, you're just a bleep head, we'll put it that way. And I think it's the same thing with Kyle Pitts. Like, yes, he can pass block, but if you're asking him to do that more than 5 times a game, you're an idiot. He's fantastic. And to sort of circle back to what they could do in the draft, they have so many options at 6. They really do. And if they decide that, look, we're going to roll with Jalen Hurts and build around him, and it seems like that's sort of the mission in front of the front office going into the draft, any of the guys I just mentioned, if they want to address offense, would be a fantastic draft pick at 6.
Yeah, I love Pitts. I think there's like a definitely a base of casual fans that see that tight end position on the Eagles, and they're like, no, do not take Kyle Pitts.
Right.
This guy's like the Ben Simmons of the draft here. He's so unique, and he's so much more than a tight end. You're up.
Absolutely. Like I've got this whiteboard over my shoulder here. I've got both my tight end and my wide receiver rankings that I'm going to be writing up soon. And I'm ranking Pitts, obviously tight end 1, but he's going to come in at like receiver 6 for me. Like I'm going to rank him on both.
Where would Baby Yoda rank?
Baby Yoda is like just weapon 1. I've got the 2 Baby Yodas. You've got the big balloon, which my kids got me for my birthday in January, at the start of January. That's still going.
Yeah.
And then there's a tiny little stuffed Baby Yoda over there. So Baby Yoda is just weapon 1. I mean, plays both sides of the ball. It's kind of like this year's version of Isaiah Simmons, right? Last year, Isaiah Simmons, the kid from Clemson who's playing all over the place. That's Grogu. I mean, that's what Grogu is in this draft class.
Fantastic.
I knew as soon as Mark came on that you were going to notice and at some point make comment about Grogu.
I'm an uber Star Wars nerd, Mark. Uber.
Maybe,
good.
Maybe like in post, we can move Grogu down to cover that Patriots banner and keep everybody happy on our end of the podcast.
I mean, look, you guys just won the most recent Super Bowl between these 2 games. So, I mean, if anything, I should be the one that's a little anxious.
And I did tweet a victory lap to Mark after that game, but
you did.
We won't go into it. I tweeted one before the game asking him if we could still be friends after, but so you're we've talked a lot of offense, and that obviously is one of your biggest areas of expertise, but to throw you a little bit of a curveball here. So the Eagles also overhaul their defensive staff. They bring in Jonathan Gannon from Indianapolis. He's going to be the defensive coordinator. I mean, we don't know for sure, but it's expected they're going to move from a single high to a split field safety scheme in 2021. And so what are some of the differences in personnel required to make that change? And how does that kind of change the Eagles' defensive needs?
Yeah, I mean, I think the main difference in terms of moving from 1 high to 2 high, is what you don't need to have at the safety position, right? The main need at the safety position, if you're a 1 high team, cover 1, cover 3, is you're going to have that true free safety type, that person that can go sideline to sideline, that can be the quarterback of the defense, study and spy the quarterback's eyes, break on throws, protect the seams, because you think about that single high structure, teams want to throw 4 verticals, those inside seam routes, attack up the hash marks. You've got to have somebody that can sort of patrol that area of the field and, lay the wood if they need to. You think about obviously the premier sort of single high team, the Seattle Cover 3, the Legion of Boom. And part of what made that so great was the 2 safeties they had. They had the ability to Chancellor and Earl Thomas play in the middle of the field. Both of them had the ability to do it. Obviously, Thomas was the better of the 2, playing that single high defense alignment, break on those throws, disrupt those throwing lanes, and cover ground sideline to sideline. Now in that more 2 high structure, you don't need to cover as much ground, right? You're only responsible for half the field if you're one of those safeties. But the tougher part of it is the run support angle, right? Now, we all know that, passing is king. Teams are playing 2 high, in part to force teams to sort of run the ball, because, if you see 2 high pre-snap, you're either going to check to a run, or if it's an RPO, you're going to go ahead with the run element of the play, so you have to get that safety involved in the run fit and to work downhill. And so that requires obviously some click and close ability from the safety. It also requires some discipline, right? Because you can have a couple of times of the game, play action RPO, and then try to hit the shot play and hope that player is screaming downhill coming off the roof. And so you got to have some discipline in that. It's an interesting safety class in terms of the draft. There are some players that can fill that. The TCU kids, I think Morin and Darius Washington, those are the 2 guys that I think would be really good sort of fits in that sort of 2 high scheme. The other thing you need corners that can press, that can stick on vertical routes, that can carry vertical routes, that are physical at the line of scrimmage, and that can sink if they need to. So that's going to tax the corners from that perspective. And I know that, corner is a potential need for this team. I know we just talked about a lot of offensive options at 6, but defensively, I think the 2 names, really the 3, if you put Horn in that mix, who Shane, I know you talked about, did a report on recently. Surtain, Farley, the Virginia Tech kid, and J.C. Horn. I think all of those guys could fit in that sort of press cover 2 alignment and scheme. I think Surtain's probably the best of the 3 for what the Eagles are looking to do. And also in part because so much of what Saban does, is easily translatable to the National Football League. I mean, all their split safety coverages, mod, stubby, stump, all the stuff those guys are asked to do so much in terms of matching principles on route concepts. Surtain's ready to handle an NFL playbook right now. Like Fairley might have the upside, obviously I think he's a bit more athletic. Horn's just kind of a dog, he's going to get under your skin, sort of that sticky man coverage type guy. But I think from a mental perspective, in terms of what you have to handle as an NFL corner, I think Patrick Surtain kind of fits what you might be looking for.
All right, before we start looking forward, you talked about Kyle Pitts, you talked about Devontae Smith, Jalen Waddle, you're Howie Roseman. Let's put you on the clock. What do you think is the optimal day 1 home run must-have pick for the Philadelphia Eagles at number 6?
Man, I mean, that's what I love about what Philly has, because they have so many options. They have, so many different ways they can go at 6. I will tell you, as a New England Patriots fan, I am praying that Kyle Pitts falls to 15.
Yeah.
And I know it's not going to happen, but I'm praying for that. I think, interestingly enough, if I'm Howie, I'm hoping that you see 3 quarterbacks go off the board early, because it's going to push guys down to you, and you'll have some options at 6, and you'll also probably have the phone ready, because you'll have teams that are going to want to look at that board and say, look, we need a quarterback, and we got to get ahead of Detroit and Carolina at 7 and 8. Because Detroit, sure, they just traded for Jared Goff, but they might like a quarterback at 7. And Carolina, it seems like they'll need a quarterback. So Howie might be in position to sort of swing a deal and slide back a couple of spots, maybe even a few more than that, and still get a very good player and pick up some extra draft capital. So I would certainly explore that. But if he's going to stay there and make the pick, I'm very intrigued by Kyle Pitts. I know that, like you said, people are going to see, how can you draft a tight end? Like, how could you draft? He's not just a tight end.
Yeah.
He's sort of the mismatch nightmare, matchup weapon that a smart offensive-minded head coach, a smart play caller is going to say, look, here's the thing that you can do with him. And I think smart teams will do this. Assuming that Zach Ertz is gone, I assume that's the situation. You play a quote-unquote 12 personnel package. Say it's with, Regal or Hightower, Goddard, and Pitts. And then you've got a running back in there, right? And you force the defense to decide, okay, how are we going to play this? Are we going to play this like it's 12 personnel, 2 true tight ends, and put our base defense on the field, our base 4-3-3-4? Sure. Okay, do that. Then now you've got Kyle Pitts and or Goddard matched up against linebackers and safeties. Like, that's a mismatch nightmare. But if they come out and say, look, Pitts, he's athletic, we're going to treat him like a receiver, we'll play 11. Fine. Run the ball down their throat. They'll be in a sub 4-2 package, 4-2-5. Pitts is a good enough blocker. He can be that move wing type guy. Goddard can be in line, and he could run the ball down their throat. I mean, you look at the New England Patriots back at the start of the 2010s, right? They had, before he went crazy, Aaron Hernandez and Rob Gronkowski. And they had that sort of 12 personnel package with the 2 of them, Danny White, Woodhead, and they forced teams to make that decision. And if they went light, they ran the ball down their throats. If they went heavy, they spread you out, went 5 wide at times, and just cut you up because you couldn't cover those guys. And you would use tempo and no huddle and things like that and just keep them on their heels. So I think, look, Kyle Pitts at 6, I would do it. And I think, look, that's the other thing. You want to put Jalen Hurts in a position to be successful, because if you're staying there at 6 and not picking a quarterback, you better get somebody that can help Jalen Hurts next year. And look, those offensive mismatches, those personnel matchups, spreading them out and going 5 wide when they're in base and just throwing slant routes to Kyle Pitts, beating linebackers, that's pretty easy for most young quarterbacks. And so I think that would be a great way to sort of help Jalen Hurts with that pick at 6.
And Eagles fans should know that most above everyone else about mismatches, especially.
Yeah.
It's kind of that classic make the defense choose and then show them why they're wrong.
Yeah, that's exactly right, Shane. Like, I think you put defenses in a position where they're going to be wrong no matter what they do. It's kind of like, if you look at it on a more micro level, the RPO game, right? You put that linebacker in a box, you play run, I'm going to throw it over your head. You stay deep, I'm going to hand it off. It's like a high-low kind of concept. But it's all just on a bigger level now. You stay big, we'll spread you out. You go light, we'll run it down your throat. Like you make them choose, and like you said, they're going to be wrong no matter what they do.
That's the exact example that popped into my head. I was just working on a football 101 series and just talking about RPOs, and that's kind of why that came to head. Just make them pick and then show them why they're wrong. Yeah.
Yep, exactly.
So you really like Pitts at 6. So again, it's well documented the Eagles roster this last year was old, bad, and expensive. So say you're the GM for the Eagles. Give me your 2-year plan. Like, what do you want to do in these 2 years? How are you going to get the team back into contention for playoffs to make maybe another Super Bowl run? What do we need to do over the next 2 years?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, look, you've got financial considerations to work out right now. I mean, as I looked before I came on, I think 17 million is what you're over the cap right now. So you've got, look, obviously, you're looking at probably releasing Alshon Jeffrey, probably with that post-June 1st designation, which will save you some money, restructure Fletcher Cox, decisions on Derek Barnett and things like that. So, you've got to get the cap under control. And, people like to joke the salary cap is a myth. Well, it's a bit more real than it is myth right now for the Eagles. So there are things they have to do. I think you have to do everything that is necessary to help Jalen Hurts this year. And like Kyle Pitts at 6 or another offensive weapon at 6, whatever it is, like you have to do what you can to put him in the best position to be successful and get a true evaluation of him. And hopefully it all works out. You don't need to worry about quarterback for the next 5 to 7 years. That'd be fantastic. But you have to give him a fair evaluation process by putting sort of weapons around him, putting an offense in place where it's catered to his strengths like we've talked about and get that evaluation done. If it doesn't work out, odds are you're picking in the top 5 or 7 next year. And then, maybe Malik Willis, the kid from Liberty, or Sam Howell, or, Desmond Ridder, the Cincinnati kid, or any of these quarterbacks that we're going to be talking about this time next year, that might be a consideration. So I think you have to help Jalen Hurts. You have to help, the young quarterback and put weapons around him. You have to get sort of the financial picture under control. And you have to get sort of athletic in the back end of the defense. Linebacker, corner, safety, like those positions have to be addressed. Linebacker, Jabril Cox sometime on day 2.
Yes.
The NDSU/LSU kid. I think he would be a wise investment on the second round if he's available when you guys pick. What is it, 37? You guys 37. Are on the clock again. If he's there at 37 and you guys want offense at 6, I would take him. I know off-ball linebackers tend to be a bit undervalued right now. They slide down boards a bit, but I think he's a wise investment. If you have to wait until corner, maybe Greg Newsome, the Northwestern kid, he's probably going to slide into the first round, but he may slide a little bit. If he does, that might be a wise investment. Safety is probably a position to address sometime late day 2, early day 3. Safeties are going to get pushed down boards, but the 2 TCU kids are interested. Cisco, the Syracuse kid, is interested. Paris Ford, the Florida State kid, Nazman Nilsradine. There are safeties to be found in the second and third days of this draft. So I would address those positions of depth. Add some talent into those groups. And then the other thing is that, you have to, I think, be smart around the edges of free agency. Obviously, with the cap position it's in, you can't invest in one guy. You can't take a big swing in free agency. But I think what you're going to see this year, given the lowering of the salary cap, given what we've already seen happening, you're seeing a lot of named players get released, right? And the cap being what it is, a lot of players will probably take 1 year bet on me kind of contracts. Well, they'll say, look, I'll play 1 year for a low dollar contract and I'll just play it out, bet on myself. And next year when the salary cap goes back up, the new TV deals and things like that, then I'll cash in. I think smart general managers are going to take advantage of that, get some players maybe on a pennies on the dollar cap contract. And so nibble around the edges of free agency, take advantage of some players that might have gotten released, some veteran guys or some mid-tier guys that want to bet on themselves, like a Kyle Van Noy who was just let go, for example, by Miami. You want to add some athleticism to the linebacker room, try to see if you can get him in on a 1 year sort of bet on himself type of deal. And so that's what I would kind of roll out over the next couple of weeks here as we head into the start of the league year. Have a plan, obviously, for the draft, but see if you can sort of get some of these veteran type players or, mid-tier type players on those sort of bet on themselves deals so you can sort of still do some stuff given the cap position the Eagles are in.
All right. Do we have time to do a quick round the NFC East? Like real,
Absolutely.
Like,
Absolutely. Yeah.
All right. All right. The Cowboys just gave Dak a monster contract. What does it mean? And was that a smart move for the Dallas Cowboys?
I don't think Dallas had a choice, really. I mean, the sticker price, sticker tag, a little bit of sticker shock there. I just tried like 3 different cliches to get to the right one there. Yeah, but a little sticker shock there. But that's the cost of doing business, right? I mean, look, the Eagles did it with Wentz. Like, if you think you've got the guy, you've got to pay him, because while it looks expensive now, what's more expensive is trying to replace a quarterback. You have to hope you get it right via the draft. If you don't, then you're paying probably more than that for a guy that might not be as good on the open market. And so I think Dallas had to do it. And the other thing about quarterback contracts is it's like the weather in New England. Like, give it 6 months, or in the weather in New England, 6 minutes, it's going to be vastly different. And so, sure, this looks like a ton of money right now, but wait until Lamar gets his deal. Wait until Josh Allen gets his deal. Like, forget Dak. The 2 happiest people on the planet this week are Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson. Because if Dak's worth 40 plus a year, I'm worth 45. I'm worth 50. Like, that's where this is going. So I think, Dallas had to do it. That's the cost of doing business now. And these quarterback contracts are just going to get bigger and bigger.
Well, and I know too that I think it's next year, like 2022, Dak counts for about the same against the Cowboys cap as Wentz counts against the Eagles this year. So, I mean, it's real low this year, getting up there the next year, but we're looking 2-3 years down the road before he gets the real big paycheck portion of it. And by then, who knows what quarterback market's going to be like anyways.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, because then, you're getting the sort of Mayfield deal. Kyler Murray, if he sort of pans out for Arizona, he's going to be in line for a new deal. Burrow and Herbert, at some point, they're going to get new deals. Like, yeah, it's just going to keep going up.
So, keeping it in the division, the Washington football team, they make it to the playoffs this year. They've probably got the best division, or the best roster in the division. And we use the cliche all the time, but they really seem like they're a quarterback away from making a run. They sit late in the draft. What should they do to address the quarterback position?
I think sitting at 19, they'd have to hope that a quarterback falls to them. And the only guy that would be Mac Jones. Now, I think if there's a head coach that might love Mac Jones, it might be Ron Rivera, because he probably looks at Mac Jones and thinks, this guy's not going to make me look foolish. He's not going to screw things up. Like, he'll throw the ball away. He'll sit there and take a sack, and he'll let our defense get back on the field, which is probably the best part of our team. So if he's there at 19, I wouldn't be surprised at all if they just say, look, we're going to take him. And we'll have Mac Jones versus Taylor Heineke, the quarterback battle that we all deserve, I guess, in the year 2021. But they might be fine with that. If they feel that, Mac Jones is not going to be there at 19, I think 2 interesting names to keep in mind would be obviously Cam Newton. Obviously, he spent some time with Ron Rivera. And interestingly enough, Cam said recently, I think it was on that show with Chad Ochocinco, that had so many great lines, the Percy Harvin story and all that. But he talked about how Scott Turner, he felt Newton did, was one of the few, if not the only coach that understood how Cam learned. Like, they sat down with a blank playbook and filled it in together. And that's how he learned the Panthers offense the best, when Turner was his quarterback's coach. And so I think a reunion of those 3 might make a lot of sense. So I would watch the Cam Newton situation. And I'd also watch Sam Darnold. If the Jets are really going to go in on Zach Wilson at 2 overall, or another quarterback at 2 overall, and make Sam Darnold available on the trade market, that might be another situation where Darnold could go to that offense. I think Scott Turner would be a good fit for him. I'm not ready to write Sam Darnold off after 2 years of Adam Gase, because let's be honest, guys, any one of us could have sat there with Peyton Manning as our quarterback and become a quarterback guru in the NFL minds, because we were coaching Peyton freaking Manning. Like, any one of us could have done that and then been labeled a quarterback guru. So I'm not ready to write Sam Darnold off yet. So those are some names I'd watch. Mac Jones in the draft, Darnold via trade, or Cam Newton via free agency.
Last question. Let's go to New York. When you look at the surface of Daniel Jones as a quarterback, did he take a couple steps back? You look at his pocket awareness. You didn't really see that much progression or development there. Is Daniel Jones the answer for the New York Giants?
Yeah, I think he can be, guys, but time's running short. I always go by the Bill Walsh 3 years to figure it out sort of rule of thumb. We're in year 3 now. I thought he showed at times, more so as a rookie than anything else, that pocket awareness, mobility in the pocket. That first start against Tampa Bay, I thought he was fantastic, handing in there, making anticipation throws under pressure. But he didn't really quite take enough of a leap this year where you can say, yeah, okay, he's fine. They don't have to worry about quarterback. I think, Slayton, the guys around him, Evan Ingram, like they didn't quite take similar leaps. I was a huge fan of Evan Ingram coming out of Mississippi. I thought he was going to be the Kyle Pitts guy that we were just talking about, and that never materialized. Struggles at the catch point. Slayton didn't quite take the step forward. Obviously, Tate and Shepard have had some injuries, and then there's the Saquon Barkley injury. So I think they have to do a better job of getting talent around him. They'll probably address receiver at some point of the draft. They've got some money. Maybe they go out and sign Kenny Golladay to get some talent around him. But if they put weapons around Jones and it doesn't happen, they might be a team that next year is going the sort of Chicago Mitchell Trubisky route of, okay, now we're going to bring some competition in, and we're going to decline the 5th-year option and keep our options open. I think he can be the guy. But like I said, time's starting to run out here.
All right, that is Mark Schofield. Dude, tell us where we can find you. What do you got going on, man?
Well, guys, thanks so much for having me. You can follow me on Twitter, and I think if I do this right, yeah, I did it. Usually I get that wrong. Usually I'm like, yeah, follow me. I'm like, I could never have been a meteorologist. First of all, I'm bad at math anyway, but that whole green screen thing is just a nightmare for me. But follow me on the Bird app at Mark Schofield, like you can see there. USA Today's Touchdown Wire, Doug Farrar and I doing all sorts of draft coverage, free agency stuff. Host a couple of different shows, but the main place is on Twitter at Mark Schofield. Guys, thanks for having me. This was a blast.
The man, the myth, the legend at Mark Schofield. Please give him a follow. Check out his YouTube channel as well. In-depth breakdowns, everything you want for the ins and outs of football. Thank you, everyone, for watching. Please be sure to like, comment, subscribe. Check us out on Twitter at The Painted Lines, Facebook, Instagram, Twitch, you name it. For Shane, for Mark, for myself, thanks for watching, guys. Stay awesome.
Sixers win it! Wow! Oh, man, and being just posterized Russell Westbrook. You love the Philadelphia Eagles! Let me get a hell